is episode 2 of Pastoring Your Kids Through the Bible. Last week we looked at the first story, being made in the image of God, and what that means for our kids. And so just wanted to continue this conversation of how we pastor our kids, because as parents, you are the biggest influence for your children. And I know many people who they want to grow, they want to help pastor their kids. They know that they're the biggest influence, but they don't always know what to say. They don't feel like they have maybe enough Bible knowledge or whatever. And so these videos are just kind of helping you carry on that conversation and giving you some little things to spur you on. And so this week I wanted to look at character development, and specifically the character of Abraham. And I have with me this week we have Liz Schaus and Robbie Schaus. Liz runs our kids department at Thrive Kids. They're an amazing couple. I have so much admiration for them both, and I see how they parent and pastor their own children, and it's a beautiful thing. So I'm talking with them this week. And the reason I picked Abraham is because I know that, so Jesus is our default, right? And that's fine, and that's great, but Jesus can sometimes seem a bit unattainable, right? I mean, he is the Son of God, and so I think it can be a little problematic where we automatically throw the example of Jesus out to our kids. Now, I do believe we all get there, right? We all want to be like Jesus. I think that's the goal. But there are other characters in the Bible that God really seems to highlight and emphasize. And one of the things that, he talks about is just these people of the Bible who make the right choices, who have the right decisions. And Abraham is one of those. What we see in Abraham is just a person who's concerned with doing the next right thing. He's not concerned about making a name for himself or what have you. And so I'm just going to read this little portion when we're introduced to Abraham. And it's in Genesis chapter 11, the end of chapter 11, verse 27. This is the account of Terah. Terah became the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran became the father of Lot. While his father Terah was still alive, Haran died in Ur of the Chaldeans in the land of his birth. Abram and Nahor both married. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah. She was the daughter of Haran, the father of both Milcah and Iscah. Now Sarai was barren, she had no children. And this seems like a small little obscure passage, okay? It's just like genealogies and stuff. What does this have to do with character development and all the things? But it highlights Sarah's barrenness. And what you see is Abraham is actually the oldest, and so when their brother dies, they feel a responsibility. It's actually Abraham's idea. He says to his brother, listen, we got to take care of these women now. It's not about convenience, it's about doing the right thing. And then it seems intentional that Abraham actually picks the barren wife. They said that they would have known about this before he even picks her as his wife. So it's to say that he was more concerned with doing the right thing than making a name for himself, carrying on his family line, which is something you were very concerned about in that day. And so it's just highlighting the kind of character that God was looking for, right? So doing the next right thing. So in your cases, you have 2 boys, you have a girl as well. How do you develop these character traits in your own kids?
So for us, I think the biggest thing is leading by example. So if you want your kids to be into church and follow God and rely on God, well then you're going to have to do it yourself. They're going to have to see you open up the Bible and read the Bible, and then they're going to follow. So, if you set the example, it's normal course that they're going to see what their parents do, and they're going to want to be like their parents, and they're going to start doing. So really, setting character in your children starts with character with yourself.
Within yourself,
So.
Well, and I got to say, I have an admiration for you, Robbie, because I see a humility in you, and I see it in your boys as well. I see a genuine humility. I know it can seem kind of odd to talk about that because usually the most humble people don't feel like they are. But how would you say you develop this humility, this humble character that I see in your boys?
I would say just through the years of growing up wise, you always want to portray that you're always going to be there for somebody. And no matter what it takes, you're going to follow through. You're going to be there. You're going to dedicate your time for them. Through anything that you do, being consistent with what you say and what you portray and just being counted on.
Yeah.
Dependability.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And I know too, like what's so important is that we let our kids know what we see in them. I think it's important that we let them know what we see in them, both positive and negative. You know, to overemphasize one area and not the other, there's an imbalance there, of course. But I think, like I said at the start, right, what we see is, you know, if you're throwing the example of Jesus out at your kids, that can be a bit of an imbalance. And I think Abraham kind of gives us this picture of, you know, Abraham's not perfect. There are some stories in Abraham's life that you go, well, that's kind of weird. That's questionable, right? But he does seem overall concerned about doing the next right thing. He has this humble character and all of these things. And you mentioned just being that example. I think it's important that your kids see you when you are doing the right thing and then perhaps when you're messing up as well.
Yep.
And even in Jesus's baptism, right? What we see God say, right? Jesus is baptized and he comes out of the water and it says, God says, this is my son with whom I'm well pleased. I mean, God is even making sure his own son knows that he's proud of him and all these things. So speak to the importance of both positive feedback for your kids and the character traits you see in them, but also how do you address the negative? How do you address the things that you don't want to continue down this path, right? How do you address both of these?
Okay, so for us, not just pointing out when they've done something maybe that we're not super excited about, because I never want to say I'm not proud of you. So, or that you've just totally messed up. We're just like, we ask them a lot, was that the decision that you wanted to make?
Yep.
And we put it back in their court and let them kind of talk it out of like, no, maybe I had better choices. We could have gone down this way or that way. But not only with them, but when other people around us maybe have made bad choices, we keep in that open conversation without pointing other people out, but just like if a friend did something at school that they come home and they talk about.
Yep.
Well, what would you have done better? How do you think that made them feel? How did that make you feel? Like just talking it all the way out, and then at the end of those conversations, just always tell them that you love them, that I'm proud of you, that even when you make decisions were not the best decisions, that at the end we can always come back around and just always end that we love you. So at the end of the day, we love you regardless of what decisions you made, but we're going to work on the next decisions because there's always, I don't know, the redemption that we can always come back and do it over. Nothing you've ever done will ever be too terrible or too bad or anything, that we love you regardless at the end of the day.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Exactly. And the other thing is lead by example. Show your compassion. Show that, you make mistakes too, and you own up to them. And for you to talk it out with them. I mean, they need to see that you're not perfect yourself, and that you're going to make mistakes. You're going to make a lot of them, but you have to learn from them. That's how we learn in life is we're not perfect. We make mistakes, and it's how you bounce back from those mistakes and show that you're willing to accept that you made the mistake and go on.
Yeah, never be too big to apologize.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah, so it sounds like, leaving the conversation open on both ends, right? Both positive and negative. It seems like you want your kids to be able to feel like they can come to you whether it's good or bad.
Yep.
Exactly.
Right? Because they know that your feelings towards them aren't going to change. Would you say where did you get that from? Where did you get that kind of idea from? Was it natural? Did you see that kind of in, how did that come about for you?
See, I would say just growing up in a single family. My mom, my dad wasn't around at the time. Just not seeing all the aspects of parenthood. Not knowing what my mom was going through, what her personal feelings were, because she wasn't very outspoken with it. And just learning from that as wanting to be a parent of letting my kids know if I'm upset, or letting my kids know that I'm happy and why I'm happy, or why I'm upset. You know, I wanted to build that into our kids of, you know, it's okay to show emotions, good or bad, and it's okay to express yourself.
I like that.
Yeah, and then they're going to start seeing that in other people. So if they can express their own feelings, they're going to recognize feelings in you and know how to respond and how to respond to you to make you feel better or to just listen.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it all just comes down to listen to each other. You need to have that open conversation to be able to listen, to be able to know about what is going on in your environment around you, what are people feeling, and that's going to help you be a better friend, a better parent, a better everything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's great. And for my own kids, like I will keep a journal for both of my boys. And so whenever I see something, positive or negative, that has come up, I've written both in their journal. I've written one time where I saw something really great in my boys. I would write about, hey, I see this in you, and I hope you continue along that road, and all these things. And then there was times where they like pitched a fit, or they showed like this kind of raw attitude about something that I know, look, you can't continue down that road because this is what it will lead to and all these things. And I didn't share with that in the moment, but I wrote it in a journal. And I always end each of those journal entries though with, look, I'm so proud to be your dad, and I'm so proud that you're my son, and I love you. And that's how I end every passage in the journal, and I'm hoping to give that to them one day after graduating high school or when they're married or something like that. And so I think it's, and what I'm hearing you say as well, is just, again, having that open communication. You know, that's something my mom would do as well, which I really admired, is that she would have these conversations with me, and some people would tell her, like, you're speaking over their head, and maybe that was true at some level, but I always knew that I could talk to them. I always knew that whether good or bad, at the end of the day, I knew it didn't change the way they felt and thought about me. And so would you say that's important that your kids know that?
Oh, yes.
Totally. And it keeps them to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And it keeps them to be an open book.
Yeah.
Good or bad. I mean, you can come to me anything.
Yeah.
Come with me. Come to me. Talk to me. Just be open.
And so, last thing that just kind of talk about, I mean, also what I'm hearing you all say is just kind of, you live your life as who you are. It's not that you have to throw Bible verses at them or do all this stuff. It's that you're letting your faith live your life normally, right? You're being who you are, and you're making the next right choice, and your kids are naturally going to see that and leave the communication open and stuff. If parents are struggling with, I don't know I don't know how to talk to my kids, or I don't know how to have these conversations with them, how would you kind of advise them or counsel them in that sort of area?
Well, being a first parent, you're not going to be perfect at this.
Yeah.
You're going to make mistakes.
Give yourself some grace.
You got to have grace, because
Yeah.
you're learning as well as they're learning.
Yeah.
So you're going to make an ouch moment yourself, and you're like, oh man, I should have handled that differently. But it's not perfect.
Yeah.
You build on it.
Yeah. And I always say that the car ride home is the best time.
Yes.
I drive my kids to school.
Absolutely.
We do a lot of a lot of driving. Well, turn off the radio. Have them put down their phones. You're in a car going from point A to point B. This is the best time to sit there and ask them, how was your day? How was your friends? How was Thrive Kids this last Sunday?
Yeah.
How was, like, open-ended questions, not a yes or no where they can shut you down, or even just start with your own. Hey, I really liked that movie we watched together last night. What do you think you would have done if you were in that situation? So you're going to start this open conversation, and then it's going to build and build and build, and then a couple weeks down the road, you're not even going to realize that the radio hasn't even been on.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what we started doing when they were younger.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, good. Who wants to ride in whose car today?
Yeah.
And you get one-on-one time.
Absolutely.
And just open-ended questions is really how to not get the yes and no from your kids, but actually get what they're saying and being able to build off of it.
Yeah.
So
That's great. Well, thank you all so much for joining me on this. And this has just been, again, we're just trying to help parents, just trying to give them a next little push. It's not necessarily an answer. This is just to say, hey, as we go through our Bibles together, we see these examples that we can do and be for our kids, and these things that where someone like Abraham, he's not perfect, he's by no means Jesus, but he teaches us to be who you are and do the next right thing, and just be that example and have those conversations. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.